Can I get a witness and a raucous round of applause for a weekly guest of ours, head coach of the Minnesota Vikings, Kevin O'Connell joins 9 to noon. What's going on there, Coach?
Pierre, I miss you today, man. I miss not being here in the room with you, but I know it's a very cool event you guys are doing over there and wish I could be out there with you.
Understandable, but 10 and 2, Tuesdays, very important days professionally. I understand that. Kevin's Vikings are 5-1 at home, 5-1 on the road, 5-2 in conference, 2-1 in the NFC North. And yeah, I miss being there now, but obviously being here for Toys for Tots and helping kids and serving and giving, that matters most to people like you and I at the end of the equation. But like I found, Kevin, when writing these questions for our X's and O's today, it's just there are different questions you can ask when it's a straight radio interview as opposed to like when I'm next to you. You know what I mean?
I do. All those extra questions you always somehow fit in before or after we get going. They're my favorite.
Yeah, like when you're walking up to a Friday press conference and I ask you about 49er option routes and I get yelled at by John Ekstrom. And by the way, John, how are the wife and kids? Now, Atlanta's at U.S. Bank Stadium Sunday at noon, and Kevin's Vikings are off a spine-tingling win versus Arizona, and that's after a heart-pounding victory at Soldier Field. And here's the point. Off that, Kevin, Ben Gessling, who covers the team for the Star-Tribune, tweeted a list of Minnesota Vikings head coaches in 7 or 8 point games. And maybe you've seen it or heard about it. Our X's and O's guest, Kevin O'Connell, 24-9 in those scenarios, which is number one all time for Minnesota Vikings head coaches. That's a 72.9% winning percentage. So what Ben failed to share, Kevin, is that you also may lead that group in sleepless nights at like 93.5% because of all these close games due to the nature of these close games. Is that accurate, or is that fair to put it that way?
I think it's fair. I would say this, though, PA, when those moments come and we're trying to find a way to win, a variety of different ways in these close games, we've kind of put in the time beforehand, much like you do before this interview, to make sure you got some great questions locked and loaded. We're ready for the moment when they come, and I think that's why we've had the execution of our players. I think that's the most important thing. It's great as the head coach to have a record like that in tight games, because that's what our league is. It's every single weekend. It's just game after game, regardless of records and all those things. It's a matchup league. It comes down to very little things throughout a 60-minute game that normally leads to that game being close in the end, and that's the way the league wants it, and that's the way our league is going. And I don't have a problem with it, because I think our guys in those moments play with a bunch of confidence and clarity on what we need to get done in the moment, whatever it's going to take to win the game. Our guys feel like we're going to figure it out and find a way to do it, and I'm really proud of where our team's at right now.
And Kevin, with everything that goes into these games, the week that is, the night before, then the game, three consecutive trips with travel, are you, win or lose, are you exhausted after these games? Because when you went traipsing through the locker room and I kind of bombarded you with a drive-by, you just looked exhausted.
Yeah, I mean, it's every bit the game that does it to you. I don't know if it's the play calling side or just managing the whole game as the head coach, working the officials, all the things that come with the 3.5 hours of enjoyment I get on a Sunday. But then it's also the week that leads up to it. We do put a lot of time and energy and work into making sure we give our guys the best possible chance to have success via the plans that we put together, and then it's practicing and it's improving and making sure that we're on top of every detail that we can. And just schematically, each week in this league, there's new challenges. You're playing against teams that are going to try to take away what you do best. And for us, that might involve Justin Jefferson, that might involve Aaron Jones, T.J. Hawkinson, Jordan Addison. So we've tried to build a system offensively where we've got answers that might, sometimes take a drive or two to get to those outcomes, but we feel really good about getting to those, and we want to make sure we have enough bullets to fire throughout how a team is going to defend us throughout a game. And then it's the same thing on the defensive side with Flo and what they do from a pressure standpoint and what they do, applying that mental and physical pressure to our opponents, they've got to have adjustments. They've got to have some things based upon what we're seeing that day. And that's why this game and this league is so exciting, because it does come down to what teams can handle those things the best in those moments. And, ever since I got into coaching, I've really just tried to make sure I'm not one of those Monday morning coaches that sits there and said, coulda, woulda, shoulda, we should have tried this, we should have done this, we should have been ready for that adjustment. If you're not going to be able to do it during that 3.5 hour window, are you really doing your job the best that you possibly can for your team? And that's one thing that I think goes into when we use that term situational masters. It's not just that end of game play. It's not just that final play. It's the sequence that leads up to it. When the fourth quarter comes in an NFL game, you've got to try to find a way to make more plays than your opponent, and that's what we try to do.
Now, yours truly was attempting to be at my best when my best was required for my 9 to noon radio show in KFAN, but I thought about it after. Do I owe you an apology for rolling up on you walking through the locker room for a drive-by after the victory over Arizona and then following you back past the food, past Quasey's office, by your office? Do I owe you an apology?
You certainly don't owe me an apology, but John Ekstrom, I know, has been holding it against you ever since, so you might have some patch-up work to do there, but I'll leave that to you fine gentlemen to take care of yourself.
Thank you. Your announcer was a little excited after that 1-point victory. Kevin's Vikings are 10-2. Get Atlanta this weekend. The Boom at noon. KFAM. With Aaron Jones, Kevin, are these fumbles with Jones circumstantial or something maybe he's thinking about a little bit, stuff like that?
Yeah, I think when you look at the first play of the game, it was a pretty darn good punch out that the defender got on him. Still cannot happen. Aaron's been a guy that's been pretty solid with his ball security for his whole career. So when you look at that, and then you look at the fumble that was lost on his reception when Sam checked it down to him, it's all about technique and fundamentals. That our job as coaches is to make sure that we go back and look at it and really find the why. He didn't catch the ball incredibly clean on that check down, and then as he turned with some of those defenders that probably should have been a little deeper, covering Justin Jefferson on that dagger route in there behind. I think Sam, if he had that one back, might have pulled the trigger on an explosive there to 18 that could have got us going a little bit. But Sam decided to check the ball down, and inevitably, as he tried to secure it off of a little bit of a double catch, he didn't quite get that thing all the way secure, and they were able to knock that ball out. And a huge play in the game. Defense is able to get a stop, and they inevitably missed the field goal. But what I've talked to Aaron about is as he's kind of come back from whether it was a little bumps and bruises throughout the season, maybe he's wearing a little extra padding here or there, as he's kind of taken on a pretty heavy lift in our offense this year. What are we doing from a standpoint of technique and fundamentals to make sure the principles of good ball security are there? And what I mean by that is, I don't know if folks can see me there, but, the wrist above the elbow against the rib cage, the offhand cover in traffic, things you see all of our players, especially after some of the unfortunate things that happened last year. We emphasize it every single day. We make sure we've got different types of circuits that challenge our guys to really test and prepare their ball security for the physicality that will come on Sunday. And I think Aaron's going to be just fine. I have not lost an ounce of confidence in him or his ball security. We've just got to see the tangible results from a real surgical mindset of how we need to go about carrying the football, and I know Aaron's going to do just that.
Kevin, help us with this, and hopefully I'm right on this, all right? Sam Darnold has had a couple of tosses to running backs where it's clear, whether it's in London or on the road, I think Tennessee, the back couldn't control the toss. But the fumble lost goes to the quarterback. Yeah. Is that accurate? And if so, how?
I think it comes down to the fact that the backs never actually secured the football when they drop a toss. And that's where we've got two of those is too many for a season at this level of football. And those are the ones that drive you the most crazy because, for instance, on the play versus Tennessee, that might have been our best run all day if we're able to secure that toss and get the edge like we were trying to do on the play. So it's not only the loss of possession is critical. It's a critical play in the game, especially early on in games. Like in both instances, it led to a momentum shift for our opponents when we're driving the ball to go potentially get points early on in the game. But then it's also the lost yardage that could have come from a nice hit in the run game that inevitably would have set up things in the pass game and probably took a little bit of pressure off of the offense as a whole early on in games that we've only done to ourselves. So two critical plays this season when I think back in games that we've won, but was that performance the total team performance when we are having plays like that? And it starts with me. I got to make sure that the techniques and fundamentals are there. Did we put too much steam on that toss? Was it located in the right spot? Were the back's eyes on the football all the way to secure the catch? All of those things is what our jobs as coaches are, to make sure that we're reinforcing individual drills and techniques and fundamentals that will translate to winning football. Because our team, for the most part, you don't get to 10-2 by not being a fundamentally sound team, but are we pressing all of those buttons as coaches to make sure we're getting the execution that we need at this level to sustain good offensive football? You cannot do those things and still consistently give yourself a chance to win as you get later on in the season. So definitely hoping we've seen the last of that, PA. The toss is still going to be a part of our offense. And if people remember against Tennessee, I think the very next run we ended up tossing right to Aaron Jones, and we were just fine on that next one. So no excuses. We got to be better in those moments because it's all about momentum in NFL football games, and the things that you do to lose games far outweigh, in many cases sometimes, all the things you do to win when they're that catastrophic and set you back like they do.
Elite answer as usual, and I was not trying to push a button and talk. If it wasn't done last year with all those ridiculous fumbles, it's certainly not going to be done now. I just don't understand why the quarterback gets that fumble lost. You got bonuses involved, you got media coverage and social media and all that, and it's like there are two fumbles that I just don't think are Sam's fault, but nevertheless the NFL credits it to the quarterback. I am accurate with that, right?
Yes, and that's where sometimes you gotta, as I know you do, you dive a little bit more into the weeds than just that box score or that stat sheet, because each and every one of those turnovers tell a story that isn't always reflected in who gets credit with that particular turnover. So it does go to Sam. It counts as two fumbles lost for him, and that is unfortunate, PA.
I know, I think it's dumb. All right, Kevin, running backs, Bijan Robinson. Now, the Falcons running back, super talented. Let's just say he was a little off his game when you guys beat them down there last year. Well, this year, 8 touchdowns, 6 catches last game. Bijan Robinson, what do you see?
Oh, he's so impactful. I mean, he's one of the young backs in our league that every time they touch it, they can change the game. Whether it is the run game, Zach Robinson's gotten a nice little wide zone kind of package going down there where they're really running off the ball and attacking the edges of your defense. Our defense is going to have to be really good about setting edges and trying to turn those wide zones back into all the reinforcements coming, the Cashmans and the Phillips and Bullards and those guys. We're going to have to be really good on the edge with JG and Ginkle and Pat Jones and Dallas Turner and those guys. But then it's when they throw it to him, screens, simple checkdowns that Kirk will take anytime he doesn't feel good about pressing the ball downfield to some of their playmakers at the wideout position. He's going to check the ball down. And when he does that, Bijan has had some huge catch and runs, breaking tackles, making people miss in space. True game-changing talent at the running back position is always something that keeps you up at night, because those guys can get the ball a heck of a lot easier sometimes in wideouts and, where protection is involved and coverage, really doesn't matter. And all of a sudden a guy that's incredibly dangerous with the football in his hands has it in space, and then it starts to challenge your ability to tackle in space. And how many purple hats can we get to the football to make sure we get them on the ground, limit the gains and yardage on those plays so we can get them into, more conducive downs for us, which are those third and longers where we can send pressure and try to overload protections and do the things that makes Brian Flores who he is. But it happens because of that early down success defending a guy like Bijan Robinson.
Kevin, off topic for a second. How much, if any, do you glance at teams around the NFL on your free time? Like seeing if anything catches your eye. And the reason I brought it up is because in this spot 2 weeks ago, when you were like, PA, I watch a lot of football. I mean, a lot of football. I just kind of thought, like, do you ever watch other teams to see if something catches your eye?
Yeah, that's part of my weekly rhythm is I always try to watch the explosive pass reel from around the league where a cut up gets made of all the plus 20 yard completions. I can watch the touchdown reel from the week and see what are people having success at. Is there any principles of the defense that we're playing that looks like that holds up for that week? And then we try to put our own spin on it and make it our own that fits so our players don't walk in the building thinking we got a whole new offense every week. Because I do think we do have a copycat league. Everyone is really looking at, plays that have obviously worked versus opponents and similar structures of defenses. So no matter what it is, you want to try to make it your own, even if you are taking, stealing an idea or at least the premise of an idea from somebody else, because I do think offenses in this league sometimes get carried away. You can go back and watch 5 weeks before you play an opponent and you'll see a play run, and then the previous week right before you play them, you see the exact same play run out of the same formation with the same motion. And what ends up happening is normally good defensive coaches and players, they fix some of those problems, and then the play might not have the same amount of success. So what I try to do is really try to look at it from a standpoint of peeling back the layers on it, PA, and seeing how do we attack that defender within that coverage, knowing what his role and responsibility is. How do we put him in a bind so that no matter what he decides, he can't be right? And it's not always easy to do. It doesn't always work. But I think the principles of trying to do that are what the most important thing is for coaches, and that's what we try to do here.
Okay, let's close with the Falcons and start with Kirk Cousins, former Vikings quarterback. His last three for Atlanta, 6 picks, 0 touchdowns. Now, the 4 before that, 10 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and 3 wins. Over that time, which includes a bye, Kevin, what has changed for him and that offense?
Well, I think that, it's such a week-to-week league. I think they had some success doing some things during that win streak. Kirk playing really well, and he really has played pretty darn well throughout the whole season in a new system. I know Zach's doing a lot of similar things that maybe he was accustomed to doing here, but there's going to be ebbs and flows throughout the season. We're catching Kirk coming off of, a day where, he turned the football over, and nobody – dislikes throwing interceptions more than Kirk Cousins. I mean, he just the one thing he knows his responsibility playing quarterback at the high level that he has for so many years in the NFL. He knows that turning the football over is normally the fastest path to losing games, and we experienced it together last year with the fumbles and early on in the season with some of the turnovers, and we weren't able to overcome that no matter how well we played outside of those turnovers. So I think you're going to see Kirk get back to what he's always been. He's going to throw a ton of completions. He's going to be really accurate. He's going to run the show and get them into the best possible plays that he can, and try to stack as many of those plays against Brian Flores and our defense as he can, knowing that at any point in time our defense has the ability to strike and force a negative play that changes the whole momentum of a drive, of a quarter, of a game. And that's what's made our defensive group so great. No matter what plays you do get on them, they're going to make you snap it one more time. They're going to get red zone stops like they did against Arizona. And then ultimately they're going to find a way to make that play, turn the ball over, change the momentum, and offensively we'll be ready to strike when that happens.
Those with Kirk, those 25 and a half games you had with him, I mean, you guys provided some big numbers, man. Now, with the current, how much do you like the setup now? With Darnold, McCarthy, Daniel Jones, along with Mullins and Brett Rippon.
Yeah, I think I love our quarterback group right now. It's been great having DJ in here in a short time period, spending some time with him, really starting to get to know him, on a deeper level of kind of his quarterback journey. And really smart guy, loves being around those other quarterbacks, is already bringing things to the table to, enhance that room. Sam Darnold's had a phenomenal year, PA. It's something that I envisioned when we really targeted bringing Sam here and really thinking about this year as what kind of opportunity could this be for Sam? Talented, athletic, a guy that stands in there, plays with an incredible toughness at the quarterback position. Within our offense, how many times could we give him a clean opportunity to have success on a Sunday and then just turn him loose and let him go make some wildly impressive throws like he has? He's attacked every blade of grass. It seems like there's really no part of the field we can't attack based upon the coverages that we're seeing. So proud of Sam, and he's really on a heck of a stretch right now, protecting the football, still being explosive. I think he, leads the league in 25-yard completions, and those have all been, really igniters for us on offense when we're trying to run the football a little bit more. We're trying to, be a little bit more balanced than maybe we've been previously, and ultimately, PA, it's led us to have a lot of winning formulas to find a way to close out these games and win 10 football games. And then when you look at just J.J. McCarthy, where he was at in training camp and really coming on from a standpoint of starting to have that initial ownership of our offense, he's doing great. He's getting healthy and really working behind the scenes right now in a way that has me really excited about his future, maybe more so even than when we drafted him, just knowing the type of person and player he is and how hungry he is to improve. It's going to be fun to really sink our teeth into working with JJ. And then Nick and Brett have been phenomenal from a standpoint of knowing, Nick Mullins comes in the game. He's got 2 attempts on third down, 2 first downs on the season, and it's been huge when he stepped in, and everybody knows that Nick's capable of running our offense at a really high level. And then Brett Rippon's a guy that we wanted to bring here to really solidify the depth of the room, a guy that's played, a guy that knows, very quickly came to a comfort level in our offense because of previous experiences. So, selfishly for me, I love having all those guys in that room. It creates an incredible environment with Josh and Grant kind of running the show, and I'm very fortunate to have that group of guys in that quarterback room.
But when you were talking about Mullins 2 for 2, of course both passes, of course both first downs, I was laughing because in the game calls when he comes in, I want to call him Mariano Rivera. I mean, it's like, okay, here comes Mariano Rivera. There's one person to strike out. He's going to strike the guy out, and then he's going to leave the game. And the starter's going to come back in. Mullins' ability to fire fresh in those situations, that's a gift, isn't it?
Well, what people don't see is the preparation. They don't see every single time Sam takes a rep at practice, you look 15, 20 yards behind him, and Nick Mullins is simulating that rep, the footwork, the read. He's visualizing what it's going to look like as if he was taking the rep. And then he's doing all the film study, making sure he's prepared on the opponent, bringing a lot to the table for us as coaches and for Sam in that supportive role of the starting quarterback that has to exist in quarterback rooms. And, it's hard to put a value on what Nick brings to that quarterback room because of a guy that's played in our system now. He's been wildly explosive when he's been in there. He's also felt the repercussions of being maybe, reckless with the ball at times, and that's only helped him become a better quarterback and a better player, and has that savviness and that veteran leadership that you look for that you can't always have throughout your entire team. So you try to flood the quarterback room with as many guys like that to have a positive impact on your team, and Nick is definitely one of those guys.
All right, last one. And, I saved what for me and hopefully for you is what the best for last here. Now, beating the Cardinals, that's the best, 10-2. Got the Kirk Chains game coming up. That's going to be super exciting. Boom at noon. But how about Jaylen Redmond? When you gave him, and I'm not in the locker room after the game, but I watch it back at Vikings.com. When you gave Jaylen Redmond first full year, I think Oklahoma, a game ball, did you see his face? He almost didn't know what to do. It was such a touching moment. And when you get middle pressure like he gave you in that game against Arizona, holy cow, if that stays consistent, right?
Yeah, and how about the reaction from his teammates? I think that's the coolest part about those moments is everybody knows, there's nothing pre-rehearsed. I'm just kind of shooting from the hip. You mentioned already I'm borderline exhausted most times when I'm kind of emptying what little energy I have out in those moments for the team because it's such a critical moment for us, with the culture we've built here, for everybody in that locker room to feel a part of the victories we are able to achieve, to feel the ownership when things don't go the way that we want. And you guys know it always starts with me. But in those moments, I want our team to see the same authentic person that they see every single day in this building, of somebody that cares about them, cares about their future playing this game and being great teammates that they are. So when I can highlight a player like that maybe doesn't get the notoriety and the credit that some of the other players do, rightly so, on our team, everybody just erupts and explodes with a bunch of joy and excitement for that player. And sometimes those guys don't always see it coming. I bet if you asked Jaylen, he didn't expect it in the moment, but that's what makes it so special in those moments with our team. Shut the doors and don't let PA in there, and that becomes that becomes critical for what we do here, PA. And I just love those moments, and every single week I look forward to them more and more, and getting the op to do that.
That's awesome. And thank you very much for the chat. See you in person next week. All right, Kevin?
Yeah, thank you, PA.